So I started to hear that the point of where they found me was somebody else's podcast. And I went, okay, this is a big one. A lot of my podcast listeners originated from somebody else's podcast. How do we do more of that action?
All right, everyone, welcome back to the podcast. Now, I have someone who you might have come across before. Her name is Stacy Tuschl. She is a best-selling author. She has a top-rated podcast, which you might have heard, called the Foot Traffic Podcast, which now has over 1 million downloads. So that's definitely a goal of mine. She's going to be coming on to talk about how she organizes her outreach to get herself not only the best guests, but also getting herself onto other people's podcasts as well. So welcome to the show.
Hi, Gloria. Thanks for having me.
So you are a busy, busy woman. I love how clear and concise and to the point you are. So can you tell us about kind of how you strategize all the different things in your business when it comes to pitching and workshops and speaking and opportunities?
Yeah. So I think for me, I always knew that PR was so important and I wanted it, but I didn't know how to do it. So I would just hire other people to do it. And then I really wouldn't be that happy with these big fancy agencies doing all of this stuff. Like I was expecting more. And I realized, okay, I know how to hire, I know how to train. What if I just brought somebody on my team and just I don't need a full time person pitching me and all that, right? So I thought, what if I just hired somebody very, very part time as a contractor that would be interested in helping get me on shows and get great guests on my shows? So that's kind of where it started. And it's so funny how it's evolved. I actually ended up calling this like a podcast producer when I put out the job description, which is totally not that at all. But I lucked out because the person that applied, she came from radio. So she was very used to the podcasting. And with radio, she had so many connections and was used to, like, she's a relationship girl. Like she is somebody who you will meet and have like a quick connection with. You'll want to talk. She builds rapport. She's great with following up. Like she came from the world of like understanding that pitching doesn't mean necessarily a yes immediately. It'll take some time. So she came on as a podcast producer. That is not what I would call her at all whatsoever. Now we realize, whoa, her zone of genius is reaching out, getting some big names on our shows, and just kind of we took it from there. So it's a crazy way of how it started, but that's really what I did and then how I kind of found her, if that makes sense.
So I love that so much. I know you said it was very part-time. I want to get into that. But first, what has been the result of delegating this outreach? Because we as founders, and I know there's people listening right now that says, well, no one can pitch like I can, or, I'm not ready yet. So there's all these things that keep delaying it to someday, one day. So when did you get started with PR? I'm sure it wasn't just this year.
No. We've been doing it for quite a while. Here's the biggest thing that came from this that I would never have expected. So you're right. I probably would have thought, well, she's not going to do it like me. She's not going to know who to do, whatever, who to reach out to. So she says to me within the first 90 days of working together, I'm going to get Susie Orman on your show. Do you know who Susie Orman is?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm like, in my head, this is what I thought. I was like, sure you are. I'm like, Susie Orman is not coming on our podcast. Like, I didn't say that, but that's what I was thinking. I literally thought this girl is nuts. Okay. So I kind of just forgot that she said that because there was no hopes up. Like that was not happening. So a couple months later, she goes, I did it. I got Susie Orman. And I was like, what? Like literally confused. I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, yeah, Susie Orman. She's got a new book out. And she said yes to come on the podcast. I was in such disbelief. And here's what I realized. We think of each other, of ourselves, not that highly sometimes. We put ourselves down. We think they'll never come on my show. Why would Gloria want to come on my show, right? We say things like that. So we don't put ourselves out there. And when this person came in, she had a very different belief of me and of our podcast. And she was like, why wouldn't she want to come on your show? I'm like, wow, right? So that I think was the most unexpected was I even said to her recently, I'm like, your belief in me is making me believe in myself more, right? Because like that's contagious. That energy is so contagious. So I actually think it helped me not just from procrastinating, but reaching out to people that I would never in a million years have reached out to.
I love that so much. I mean, now not only do you have a podcast, but you've been able to make the impact. Now, for a lot of our founders who are listening, they don't have the traction and the traffic that you do. That's really your realm of expertise. So, if someone is just starting out, what
Yeah.
can they do to face this beast of PR that they either don't have time to do it or they just need to wait until the right moment? What would you tell them to get started? How would they start?
Yeah. So I really think it's just building that momentum. So before I ever hired the person that's running this for me, I was doing it myself. So what I was doing was I was just making connections, reaching out to people, whether it was saying, "Hey, do you want to do a podcast swap?" or utilizing my podcast first as leverage to say, "Do you want to come on my show?" Build a relationship with them, have them see, okay, she knows what she's talking about. I like her energy. And then a lot of times they would say, "Do you want to come on my show? I have a podcast too." So that was a really great way of like getting out there. And then from there, it was leveraging those small yeses, right? And as I would kind of showcase the biggest yes, when I would go to the next person to say, "Hey, and maybe I was like, back in the day, like pretending to be my assistant, like, "Oh, Stacy's been on blah, blah, blah and featured," right? Whatever. But I just kept leveraging it. And in the beginning, it wasn't like big names are saying yes to me, but I was getting volume. I was getting lots of quantity, but that quantity started to help me get better at understanding what they were saying yes to and why they were saying yes and how I could kind of take that information to keep kind of climbing that ladder, getting bigger names. If that makes sense.
I love what you said about, whether it's making the snowball effect or the domino effect. We just need that first yes, and we can't delegate
Mhm.
that learning, right? I know for me, like
Yeah.
you have a million downloads. I just started my podcast and I pitched to you as well. And here we are. Not only are we friends now, you've been on my show.
Mhm.
So leveraging those small yeses definitely is definitely a part
Yeah.
of my CPR method too, where you talk about your credibility. It doesn't mean that you have to have a podcast. It doesn't mean you need to
Right.
have a 6 or 7 figure business. It could be as simple as I am a mom, a creator, and I have
Mhm.
had this problem, all of my life, or
Yeah.
I have a solution. So it doesn't have to
Yeah.
be like that, right? I mean, do you only accept
Absolutely.
guests who have been on other people's podcasts or have these awards under their
Oh,
belt?
yeah, great question. So, first of all, I do have standards, but they're not as crazy as people think, right? I mean, I definitely want to make sure we actually have 2 million downloads now. I have to clearly update my podcast or my bio, because I mean, we are getting bigger, like we are growing, right? And it is the snowball effect. And as people are trusting me to bring great content and great guests, I have to make sure I do my due diligence. So, some of my standards, and again, this is nothing crazy, but one of the things we state is we're looking for people, if it's for me to be, let's say, on their show, my standard is that their podcast has been airing consistently for a week I should say every week for 6 months. Okay, this is if I wouldn't know them. Like it's possible that I have met somebody, I'm like, "Oh my goodness, yes, I want to support, I want to help, let's do this." But typically I'm like, no, I want to see consistency, because if I don't know you, I have to make sure that this is going to actually air when you say it's going to air, and you're not going to stop the podcast, right? Same thing when somebody coming on my show. I'm not necessarily looking for crazy social media and crazy this. I'm making sure that it's something my audience wants to hear. It's something we haven't done before, or there's a different angle with it. And then I will go check out maybe some of their videos or their stories to see, how are they speaking? Is this something that is the energy of the conversation something my audience is going to relate to, right? Sometimes people want to go on podcasts or do things where you can just tell they haven't done very many, which is fine, but you have to get better at your craft. You have to practice. I mean, if you would listen to some of my first episodes and you listen today, it is night and day, because I'm just comfortable. Like, "Gloria, we're just having a conversation. This isn't scary." A couple years ago, I was scared, so you could hear it, right? But that practice really started to get me more comfortable. So, getting any yeses, even if you're like, "This is dumb, no one's going to hear this." Great, use it as practice. Like, that's okay that no one's going to hear it. You're not ready maybe for somebody to hear it quite yet. So, just really, really practice that skill set.
Ooh, I love that. And I know so much of what you do is about the mindset because you've helped thousands
Mhm.
of entrepreneurs get over that. It's all about envisioning the future of what you need to be and stepping into
Yeah.
that future version. And now that I've built my own business, and I remember when this podcast was just a pipe dream, it's all about like, what would the future mean? Like, how would I decide to run my business?
Mhm.
Right. So definitely getting that one yes, leveraging those yeses, always having a beginner mindset and starting
Yeah.
early. There's no replacement for experience, right?
Absolutely. Well, and when I went to go hire somebody to finally do this to help me, it was really good that I understood what worked and what didn't with me and how I was pitching, right? I was able to pass that info to her. And I also knew what types of podcasts worked best for me to jump on, like which kinds I enjoyed, which ones maybe produced like people coming to follow us, right? That we attracted the right person. So I was able to give her all of that information because I had done the work up front.
Exactly. And you could train other people. So just
Yeah.
tell us, give us very quickly some numbers. Like how many podcasts have you been on? How many media features have you landed with this, pitching that now you've been able to delegate so
Yeah.
successfully?
I mean, I would say that I stopped counting after 100. Like and I only knew 100 because I remember the goal was like 4 a month, like get me on 4 podcasts a month, or I want to get in 4 a month. And when I kind of did the math, I was like, okay, I mean, I probably have been on a few hundred.
Wow.
So one of the things that I do is first, I'm a big tracker. I track what works and then I lean in to what's working. So when I get a new client, I say, hey, how did you what made you buy today? And then I'll say, and how did you originally find me? Those are two very different questions, right? What did you buy? Why did you buy today? You might have said, I heard this podcast you did, or I your Instagram story like hit me and it just was like, it's time. But you might say, but I found you 3 years ago when I was listening to Gloria's podcast. You see what I'm saying? So I started to hear that the point of where they found me was somebody else's podcast. And I went, okay, this is a big one. A lot of my podcast listeners originated from somebody else's podcast. How do we do more of that action? So I decided that one of my KPIs, one of my key performance indicators for my success, for my personal role in the company, was I need to do podcast appearances. So that's actually probably when I realized I need somebody to help me with this, because if I'm going to be on podcasts all the time, I can't be doing the pitching, the follow up, and right. So I think I really leaned into I need help so I can do what only I can do, and that's show up here today with you while somebody right now is emailing and scheduling it and finding a time that works for both of us and all the things. So one of my weekly goals is to be on at least 2 appearances of some sort. Does that make sense?
Per week.
Now, per week. And this week, I happen to have 4. And it's just because, like, I had one before you today, right now with you, and then I have one right after you, and I had one last night. It just happened to be somebody needed a presentation yesterday and somebody needed a presentation today. I'm like, okay, put it in there. But the goal is a minimum of 2. Now, sometimes there's nothing. Like, there might be nothing next week because it just happens. I mean, we're recording this after Memorial Day will be next week. It just might be a slow week. People might not be recording. They might be slowing down for summer. So it might just die down. But the goal is, how do we try to get 2 per week? So instead of Julie reaching out to 2 people a week, she had to figure out how many people do I have to reach out to get 2 yeses a week, right?
Oof, I love
So
it.
yeah, and that's where people think, oh, well, I reached out to 5 people. Well, if 5 people yielded you 0 interviews, try 10. And if 10 got you 1, how many times do you want a podcast? Or how many times do you want that article feature or that news feature, whatever it is? What are you specifically looking for? So it's a lot of try it, track it, and then from those numbers, let that data dictate how you move forward and what actions you do moving forward.
I love how you said that the number of podcasts directly correlates to the health of your business. And you've said it. So many other people have said it. I
Mhm.
actually, Stacy, I haven't even told you this, but somebody joined my PR program and she literally said, I'm so glad I found you on Stacy's podcast. And I
Yeah.
literally was on your podcast a week ago. So I owe you a thank you for that.
So here's the thing. It's like, all it takes is for somebody to hear it and hear it the right way and
Mm.
go, where's this person been? I need this person in my life, right? And sometimes you get hit immediately with a follower or a buyer. And sometimes it's a podcast has a shelf life of over 2 years. So you might, Gloria, in 2 years, somebody's like, oh, I followed you after Stacey's podcast and I'm finally ready. Like, I'm finally taking this seriously, right? So again, you watch that and you see, and not only do I track that it's coming from podcasts, but I track what podcasts. Who do I want to build a relationship with? Who do I want to continue to say, hey, let's do this again in a year, right? Or let's do this again, let's do this, or whatever that is. Because when you find a really good one that's working for you, it's like, ding, 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 right? Like you've got to zone in again on that data.
Yeah, I love it. And now, obviously, you know this because you've pitched so many times. I have my own way of pitching as well, keeping it short, keeping it concise,
Yeah.
highlighting what questions the person can ask instead of being like, "Here's what I can talk about," making it super
Mhm.
easy. I want to shift focus to finding the right person.
Okay.
A lot of founders think it's so expensive or you need to be at a certain revenue level to delegate this. But what I'm hearing from you is that the shortcut to success, if you will, is delegating this early and often. So can you walk us through
Yeah.
how you find the right person for this?
Yeah, I really think it just has to I don't know that they have to have a certain background or skill set. I think the person they need to be naturally is somebody that like is extroverted, likes to talk, likes to engage, right? And they're not afraid to start a conversation, right? I mean, Julie probably emailed a million different people to get to Susie Orman to find her, right? Like and it was like a hunt for her and she was excited and she was like, "Oh my goodness, I made this connection and I'm talking to the girl who's doing this on her team." And like she loved it. It was exciting. If you're not somebody who can, I guess the person you're hiring, right? If they're somebody that needs instant gratification, this is probably not the role for them because they are going to hear no's quite a bit. Like I get on a lot of podcasts, but there's a lot I don't ever hear back from, right? So you've got to get somebody who's okay with hearing the no's, like still following up, and just being okay with not feeling too pushy, right? People think, well, I've sent 2 emails in 6 months, and I don't really want them to think I'm annoying, right? I mean, we just got Jenna Kutcher on our podcast, and no joke, Julie said, I've been working her for 2 years. I have been messaging them for 2 years. And she goes, they never asked me to stop. So I just kept following up with them. And she's like, and here we are. And I just said, how many people do you think would reach out to somebody for 2 years? Because I can tell you right now, I would never. Because I would think, oh, don't do that. She's going to think we're crazy. It's going to look pushy, right?
Hmm.
That's my personality. I'm not the girl to be reaching out and pitching. I'm the girl to think like, "Oh my goodness, I emailed yesterday and they still haven't responded." Like I'm that girl.
Yeah.
And that's not the girl you want pitching for yourself, right? So, I think look for that. I do think this is when you think about what the task is itself, where it's really like administrative. It's somebody who's just emailing, who's DMing, and it could be somebody following a script you give them, right? So it could be Gloria, you saying to your clients, start with this or say it this way. And you just put Gloria's system into place and you try that, right? So it's not that, and that's the best part. There's people out there like you, Gloria, who are telling us all the secrets where we can just buy your course and then say to somebody on our team or hire somebody for 5 hours a week, could you implement this for me? Right. So you can pay somebody a flat hourly rate, right? And you can also commission somebody on the podcast they book you on, right? So you could have a dream list of the top 100 podcasts or your top 100 favorites and say, hey, anybody that says yes to you on this list, what is it worth to you? Like people always say, well, what should I give them? I don't know. What would you pay to be on that show? Like if you could get on a show that had 5 million downloads, what would that be worth to you?
Ooh,
Some of you
at
might be like,
least a few hundred or even a couple
right?
thousand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So you might go, man, if you could get me on the top 100 in marketing or in wherever, I'd pay $100 per episode for that of like whatever you
Mhm.
can get. Because anybody in the top 100 has a good amount of listeners that are keeping them at the top, right?
Yeah.
So you may even want to think about going that route of, I'm not even going to have to pay unless she gets something, right? It could be a commission type job where it almost feels like a sales role.
Awesome. Okay, so now you
Yeah.
told me the personality, the pay structure.
Yeah.
How many hours do you think is sufficient for this role?
Okay, so think about what you're doing right now. A lot of us procrastinate and we're doing nothing. Like it's just not happening, right? Imagine if you took yourself an hour a day, Monday through Friday, and you just pitched and you reached out. I bet you'd get a lot from just an hour, right? So to me, I think for as little as 5 hours a week, you could get somebody doing this. You could get something, think about it, 10 hours a month would still be probably 10 hours more than you're doing.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
even 5 minutes a day, even
I
adding
know.
one editor from the media list of thousands of people on LinkedIn. I mean, that's planting seeds, right? I love
Oh
how
my
us
goodness.
as entrepreneurs, we know that success comes from planting the seeds and seeing it as a long-term thing. Because here's the thing,
Yeah.
like I just told you that I pitched to get onto your podcast. I already had someone get my program. So that in and of itself is worth it, right? And just
Right.
within 1 week. So
Yeah.
even if you're not at that revenue level yet, for anyone that's listening, I encourage you to think about how important this is. This is like the top
Mhm.
5% of activities that's going to result in more than 80% of your growth. And you know this because you coach
Yeah.
entrepreneurs. It's all about prioritizing. And it sounds like to me, this is something people should prioritize no matter how early stage they
Yeah.
are.
Yeah. Oh, one thing I want to say too is I always tell people like look at the podcast and what they talk about and what their topics are. Now, be careful because if Gloria would have come to my podcast and saw I have quite a few PR episodes, she might have been turned off like, "Oh shoot, she already has PR." But the reason I have quite a few PR episodes is because everybody wants to hear PR. So it's actually one of the easier things to get on my show for, not because we have more, it's because the demand is there. Okay. So it really is a supply and demand situation. So that was another thing too, where don't assume they just talked about this. Well, they might talk about it often because people want it. So just don't make up lies in your head about what you think and why this will never work for you. Just send it out and see what happens.
Yeah. Another question I get asked often is, well, should I have my assistant write that it's from her or from me? Does it sound more prestigious if it's someone else pitching for you?
I mean, I thought that too. Like, I'm like, "Oh, it can't be from me." I mean, honestly, it doesn't matter. I mean, it really I think a well-written email with a reason why this would be a great fit for my show, I don't really care who signs it.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
exactly.
honestly, I'm not reading the pitches. So, now it's not even my opinion, it's the person on my team. Well, I don't know that my team member is gonna have a thought of, like, Gloria sent it herself or her assistant or I don't know that. I mean, I can tell you right now, we're not judging from that, right? It's more of a we skim. We're getting so many pitches a day that we're glancing, we're looking at the topic. If we're somewhat interested, we may go to your Instagram. Like we are going to social proof of like not so much on follower count, but on your content. If I can't find you on video, if I can't find you talking, right? I'm not interested because I've had really bad interviews on the show where I'm just going, this must be like their first episode. Like this is not a good conversation. We don't have good energy together. And again, like I have to put out the best quality content I can.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you can give perspective both from someone who started to pitch with an agency and now took it in house with success.
Mhm.
And why don't you tell everyone, like, at the most, like the day that you get the most pitches, how many are you receiving per day?
Oh my goodness. I don't know because I don't weed through them. So I'm not the person that's getting the pitches. But I will say, I do see an Instagram, right? Because I'm in my DM. So I will see people asking, and we're like, hey, great, ask, here's the email where you can email. Um, I mean, we're definitely getting, I don't know, sometimes maybe 5 pitches a day, sometimes maybe 5 a week. Like it really is hit or miss. And that's another thing. Sometimes it's just your timing. If somebody hasn't had a pitch in a while and you just happen to be in their inbox and they're looking for a piece of content or somebody just canceled and they need an interview, it really is on timing. But you also might have hit them when they received 10 and they didn't even open yours. So you've got to be frequent and you've got to be consistent and those are the people that are winning in this game.
Yeah, exactly. And I teach all the time too in my PR starter pack is have an email tracking device. It's time.
Yeah.
Technology is there. At least
Yeah.
monitor who's opening it. How would you say in terms of the game of follow up? I know that follow up that's where it all happens, but
Yeah.
how much follow up is right? How much of it is too little? How much of it is too much?
Yeah. So this is where I think you've got, and I do this with clients even, like read the room, right? Like if somebody you can tell is just not interested, this is not something we can continue to keep going back with, right? But if somebody is saying things like, yes, but not right now, or we're done recording, but hey, if you reach back out, we reach back out. Like we do what they tell us to do. So I would just say, Julie's thing is like if they're not telling me no, I'm going to keep checking in and asking and all the things. But I also think too, we're very good on timing. One of the biggest tips we have realized is when somebody puts out a book, that is when you ask them on your show. Cuz they are setting up hundreds. They are saying yes to everybody, right? So Susie Orman brought out a book. Jenna Kutcher launching her book. So people, I mean, Jenna Kutcher said she has only done 4 podcast interviews, I think, in 1 year, and then this year, like hundreds because of the book. So do you see what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
the timing was just bad before. The timing was good now. So it worked for her.
Exactly. It's reading the room, but also like knowing that
Yeah.
because there's no crystal ball, no one knows your editorial calendar. It's better to just pitch early. Now,
Yeah,
now I want to talk
absolutely.
more about your inbox of when people pitch you, because now
Yeah.
you have 2 million downloads, you have a top rated podcast. What are some subject line hacks, or what are some of the best pitches you've received?
Yeah. You can just feel when it's about them and their business, right? And just the it's like this is a stretch. Like, how are you saying that topic is helping my audience, right? It just doesn't even feel connected. And if you start making me do the work of does this connect? I'm done. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you haven't like set this up for us, we're not going to continue. I also really wish people would send more of their social proof right away. And a lot of people are like, but shoot, I don't have social proof. Here's the deal, we're all going to check it out anyway. You might as well just show us. You know what I mean? Get it in that email because some people might not go to check out it. They're just like, that's a no. I'm not looking for like crazy numbers. I'm looking for good content. I'm looking for like just really a well looking feed of not like branded, but just good stuff that my audience is going to come to you and go, this looks good. This looks interesting. Right. But if I see that they're just not serious and they're not even posting and they're not actually putting out valuable content to me, then it's like how you do anything is how you do everything. So this episode isn't going to be great.
Oh,
Right.
I love that. Okay, so how is it
Yeah.
connected? Don't make it a stretch. What about subject line or something that's like overly gimmicky or forceful?
Um, right now we're not getting enough to not open something.
Mhm.
So, as much as people are like, you need a good subject line. Yes, if I was getting maybe 100 a day, but I'm not getting 100 a day. My team is opening every single email we get. So, to me, that subject line is so important if people are weeding through just the subject lines, right? But we are going to open that email no matter what. So when I look at that base of that email, I like a nice one sheet that is clear. I can tell who you are, what you do, what questions I could ask you, what topics you can speak on. I can skim that one sheet because I do see like Julie will pass me things where she's not sure. She's like, I think this might be a good fit. What do you think? And I'm kind of giving that second look. So I will see one sheets of people that have gotten to that next level.
I love that. I mean,
Yeah.
for anyone that's listening, I don't want to see your inbox is open, but you are reading
Yeah.
them. So definitely watch the masterclass and download the pitch template. That's exactly how I was able to get onto your podcast. Now I could
Yeah.
talk to you for hours. You have done so much work around mindset, productivity, time, all the stuff. So what are you most focused on right now in terms of helping entrepreneurs get to the next level?
Yeah. So I'm actually writing my book right now. So I'm on book number 3, which has been like a long time coming. So yeah, I'm writing my book all summer. It's been already like gotten started, I should say, but it's like time to finish this and really get it out there. So it really is for me, I think, just a time of like putting out massive content, really getting like we're grabbing case studies and stories, and the more specific I can get when I share something, right? Versus like grow your income, your impact. It's like so boring, right? But when I can say, listen, this girl did this and here's what she did and here's how that, and I give the actual story, right? It draws people in. So we are just talking to our clients, pulling out stories. I am interviewing them where you'll never see those interviews. It's just for me to grab that and put it in the book and show people like what is possible in their business. So that's I think my biggest piece of work that's going to be coming out is over the summer doing that.
I love that. Now, how can people find you and kind of take the next step,
Yeah.
no matter what industry they're in?
Yeah, for sure. And that's the thing. I mean, we help any industry. We're big on getting your business like a well-oiled machine, getting the business to not be reliant on you. So that's what we do specifically. But the best places would be my podcast called Foot Traffic. Otherwise, Instagram at Stacy Tuschl. And then I have a free Facebook group called Foot Traffic Operations. So any of those would be a great place to come say hi.
Ooh, I would love to join your Facebook group. And you're going to have to come over to
Yeah.
the Small Biz PR Facebook group because I know there's a lot of
Okay.
founders in there who could definitely use some of that systems and processes and mindset tips that you give.
Yeah. Amazing.
Thank you so much and congrats on the book.
Thank you, Gloria. So fun being here. I appreciate you. And one thing I will say too as we wrap up is my team right now is going through Gloria's course. And just because you think you know PR or you think you've gotten this down, like we've been doing PR, we've been studying PR for so long. We've been working with agencies who are doing other things. But if we can find one golden nugget, and we have, if we can find one golden nugget, it's so worth it for us to be faster, more efficient, better pitching, easier yeses, and all the things. So, so grateful to be a part of that community and be in there. And I can't wait to come back on and be a testimonial of how
Yes.
like everything is just killing it for us.
So
So
instead
thank
of
you so much.
instead of two a week, we're gonna get you every single day on a podcast.